Magadja, and I'm the third year student of Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Filipino. The topic to discuss is all about Chapter 15, The Visionary Journalist to Paris and Brazil. Here is our outline: synthesizing historical materials about the Philippines, results and the exposition of 1889, other activities and accomplishments in Paris, sobre la indolencia de los Filipinos, Filipinas dentro de 100 años, results and Brazils, articles written for the La Solidaridad, criticism of Filipinos' passion for gambling. The next, disturbing news from home, the premonition of Rizal, the plan to return to the Philippines, a mimosa or to my muse, and last, Rizal's affair with Susanne Jacobe. And for our topic we discuss is all about the synthesizing historical materials about the Philippines. Then, after completing his annotation of Marga Sucesos de las Filipinas, Rizal moved to Paris. This was in time with the holding of the Universal Exposition in the city on May 6, 1889. Now, pagkatapos ng anotasyon ng Marga Sucesos de las Filipinas, si Rizal ay nagtungo sa Paris. Then, after that, he was in the time with the holding of the Universal Exposition in the city on May 6, 1889. Now, despite the numerous social parties, he had to attend to Rizal sustain his patriotic and literary pursuits. So sa kabila ng mga maraming hadlang katulad mga social parties, hindi nag-alinlangan si Rizal na umattend para ma-sustain yung kanyang hangarin tungkol sa pagiging makabayan at saka sa panitikan. The next, he took an active part in the campaign for reform in Barcelona, in Madrid. Then, si Rizal ay nanguna din sa isang kampanya patungkol sa reforma ng Barcelona at Madrid. Then next, he became a journalist, a visionary journalist. From Paris, he moved to Brazil. Then, si Rizal ay naging isa ding mahusay na mamamahayag. Then, pagkatapos noon, nagtungo na si Rizal ng Brussels. Yan. Synthesizing historical materials about the Philippines. After annotating Marga Sucesos, Rizal realized that numerous materials about the Philippines and Filipinos are found in libraries and abroad too. So, pagkatapos nga nung anotasyon ng Marga Sucesos, si Rizal ay may napagtanto tungkol sa maraming materyales patungkol sa ating Pilipinas at maging sa mga Pilipino, kung saan ito ay matatagpuan sa iba't ibang lugar. Halimbawa na in Acapulco, Sevilla, sunod yung Madrid, bago Paris, at last ang London and Berlin. And he acknowledged his friends Ross and Blumentritt further that helped in his quest for knowledge about history of the Philippines. So diyan, pinasalamatan ni Rizal si Ross at saka si Blumentritt dahil sa pagtulong niya pagtulong tungkol sa story ng ating Pilipinas. As well as the pronouns of European scholars like Virchow, Hagor, Norman, and other German scholars. Isa din niya sa mga pinasalamatan ni Rizal dahil sa kabutihang pagtulong sa kanya para matupad yung kanyang mga gagawin katulad nilang Virchow, Hagor, Norman, and other German scholar. Next. International Association of Philippinologists, another organization conceived by Rizal. So, iyan yung itinatag na isang samahan ni Rizal na kung saan ito ay yung International Association of Philippinologists. Sa tulong ni Ferdinand Blumentritt, itinalaga niya ito bilang isang presidente at siya naman ay isang sekretary. So Rizal told Blumentritt that the organization of the International Association would coincide with the Universal Exposition of 1889 in Paris. So, sinabi ni Rizal kay Blumentritt, itong organisasyon ay nasa under pa o kung saan nagkasabay yung Universal Exposition sa taon noong 1899 sa Paris. Next is the first conference is in the Philippines under Spanish rule before after 1808. The next Blumentritt accepted Rizal offer but suggested that independent tribes and regions of the Philippines be included in the agenda. So dapat daw yung tatanggapin ni Rizal ito, subalit kailangan yung nakapaloob doon sa agenda ay patungkol sa tribo, sa rehiyon dito sa Pilipinas. Then, upang matugunan yung mga problemang nag-uugnay sa kasaysayan ng ating bansa, na kung saan nga ito ay matatagpuan sa iba't ibang libraries at museum. Yan. Then, after that, it did not materialize and the organization remained an association of best friends. So, gayon pa man, kahit ang plano nila ni Blumentritt at Rizal ay hindi natupad dahil sa kadahilanan ng mga taga-Pranses, yung mga gobernador doon, ay limitado lang daw yung pagdalo o paglalahad ng kaganapan noong 1889. Sabi sa mga salita ni Guerrero. Subalit kahit ganun pa man ay nagkaroon sila ng isang pundasyon o pagiging matalik na magkaibigan si Rizal at Blumentritt. So, yun lang po yung parte ng aking report. Then, yung susunod na mga topic ay tatalakayin ng aking kagrupo. Maraming salamat sa inyong pakikinig.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmate. My name is Jay Marie Batang at ngayon ay tatalakayin natin yung patungkol sa Sobrang Indolencia de los Filipinos. This was the longest essay written by Rizal, which was published in 5 installments in La Solidaridad from July 15 to September 15, 1890, Romeo et al. 1978. This essay represents the defense of the Filipinos from the charge that they were inherently lazy or indolent during the Spanish regime. So, dito nga yung essay na to ay sinulat ko ni Rizal patungkol sa pagdefense sa mga Pilipino, sa pagtatanggol sa mga Pilipino na mga Pilipino daw ay hindi daw tamad or indolent or mga walang ginagawa. So, according to Rizal, whenever something goes wrong in the Philippines, there is a tendency to blame the Filipinos. Yan nga, may kunting pagkakamali lang, Pilipino na agad ang sisihin. On this basis, he tried to analyze the social and political condition of the time to prove that indolence was a cause rather than the effect of backwardness in country. While Rizal colleges were on the opinion indolence was non-existent in the country. Yun nga yung mga colleges ni Rizal, yung mga kasamahan ni Rizal, hindi sila naniniwala na tamad daw ang country natin or tamad daw ang mga Filipinos. Rizal believed or otherwise, for him, indolence, which he defined as inactive, little love for work, or complete disregard for work, had become a way of life for many Filipinos. Yun nga, para kay Rizal na ang indolent or katamaran o yan, lazy, nire-define niya ito na kunting pagmamahal daw sa trabaho or minsan wala na talagang pakialam sa trabaho or ito daw yung hindi pagiging aktibo sa mga gawain or sa trabaho. Rizal's thesis in the essay was simple, that Filipinos were not born lazy but had a predisposition to become lazy. Diba, tama naman, talaga naman ng tao, o kahit di lang naman mga Filipinos ay hindi naman talaga tamad, di ba? May mga dahilan lang tayo or mga predisposition kung bakit tayo nagiging tamad. So, acknowledging the tendency for the Filipinos become indolent due in a part to tropical climate. Dito naman, dahil nga daw sa isa sa indolent or lazy or katamaran ng mga Filipinos ay dahil nga din sa climate. Dahil nga sa sobrang init, dahil doon nagiging tamad ang mga Pilipino sa magtrabaho. Kahit sino naman, di ba? Kung mainit naman talaga, nakakatamad magtrabaho. Rizal noted that it was the Europeans surrounded by servant who was the paragon of laziness in the tropics. Yan nga na napag-alaman ni Rizal na itong European nga ay meron silang mga tagapaglingkod na nagkakos daw ito ng laziness in the tropics. People in the tropics are expected to work less. Hot climate, however, was compensated by the fertility of soil. As a consequence, the peasants did not have work hard to ensure good crops. So, dito nga, di ba, kahit naman daw sobrang init, binayaan naman daw sila ng mayabong na lupa. Dahil nga maganda yung lupa nila, dahil mayabong ito, hindi na nila kailangan magtrabaho ng gusto. Hindi na nila kailangan magtrabaho ng work hard. Kasi nga, alam nila na yung tinanim nila o yung mga pananim nila ay magiging maganda ang kalalabasan. Magiging maganda yung bunga dahil nga sa mayabong na lupain. So, the accounts of early Spanish chronicles like Morga, San Agustin, and Colin clearly showed that pre-Spanish Filipinos were noted for their activity and honesty. Consequently, industry, manufacturing, mining, and commerce flourished among the people. So, ito nga itong si Morga, San Agustin, and Colin, ito yung mga tagasulat na Espanya, nagsabi daw nila na ang pre-Spanish Filipinos daw ay mga activity and honest. Yan daw mga aktibidad or mga tapat daw ang mga Filipinos nang dahil doon sa mga sulat nila patungkol sa mga pre-Spanish Filipinos, umunlad ang ating bansa. Yan, umunlad ang ating industry. Dahil umunlad ang ating industry, yan, umunlad ng manufacturing, ang pagmimina, ang yan, mining, and commerce ng mga tao. So, next. To deterioration of the industry of Filipinos can be attributed to two sets factors. Two attributable to the Spanish colonizer and two attributable to the Filipinos on fold. So, ito nga, dalawa yung ganyan niya. Meron tayong two sets factor kung talaga nga bang kasalanan pa ng mga Spanish colonizer pa talaga dahil ba sa mga Spanish colonizer or dahil ka ba talaga sa mga kasalanan ng mga Pilipino, kasalanan nga ba talaga ng mga Filipinos. So, dito man tayo, National Heroes Commission 1964. Number 1, wars are internal disorder that follow Spanish conquest. Ito nga yung pinadala nila, ito yung tinawag nila yung mga Pilipino, di ba? Pinadala nila yung mga Pilipino, tapos yung ginawa nila sa mga Pilipino, ginawa nila itong rower at archer para itaboy yung mga Dutch at mga Portuguese. So, dahil doon, mga Pilipino yung ginawa nilang mga rower at saka archer, marami na naman mga Pilipino ang mga nasawi. Dahil mga nasawi sila, kakaunti na naman nakabalik sa isla. Dahil nga kunti na nakabalik sa isla, nabawasan na naman ang may mga potensyal. May mga potensyal na mga Pilipino nabawasan na yung mga potensyal na mga Pilipino sa pagsasaka, pangingisda at saka sa mga manggagawa. Dahil nga sa naganap na pagtaboy ng mga Pilipino sa Dutch saka Portuguese. So, number 2, piratical attacks on coastal towns and villages by Muslim pirates. So, dito naman yung mga gobyerno na mismo yung naghimok dito, di ba kasi sinakop na nga sila. Tapos, dito, dahil nga nagkaroon na ngayon attack dito ng mga Muslim, nabawasan na naman yung mga naninirahan sa bayan. Dahil nga sa kinahinat na nawalan na ng interes yung mga tao. Dahil nga natatakot na din sila sa pagsalakay ng mga Muslim. Diba? Dahil nga na-attack na sila ng mga Muslim. Dahil natatakot din sila sa pagsalakay ng Muslim. Bakit nawalan din sila ng interes sa pagtitrabaho? Ang dahilan talaga kung bakit sila nawalan ng interes sa trabaho kasi nga hindi sila makikinabang sa pagtrabahuan nila, di ba? Kahit sino naman, at siguro tatama rin mawala ng interes pagka ikaw na naghihirap, pero hindi naman ikaw makikinabang. So, yun nga, nawala ng interes ng mga tao dahil sa hindi sila makikinabang, tapos natatakot pa sila sa mga Muslim. Sa pagsalakay ng mga Muslim. Okay, number 3, forced labor in shipbuilding. Dito naman ng mga Pilipino, sa yan, pinilit na magtrabaho na magputol ng mga troso. Ito na magputol ng mga troso para may patayo ang galayon. Ang galayon ay, ito ay for example, ito yung isang ship na ginagamit nila dati. Yan, ito yung, tulad na sa Harry Potter, yan. Yan yung example ng galayon. Ganyan example ng isang galayon. So, at sa mga barko papunta sa Acapulco. So, yun yung gagamitin nila papunta sa Acapulco. Dahil nga doon, di ba, pinurse na naman nila mga Pilipinos na magtrabaho na sa pagtutroso, yan sa paggawa ng mga barko, nang dahil doon, nabawasan na naman daw ang mga tao sa bukirin. Kaya nabawasan na naman yung magbubungkal ng mga lupa sa atin, nabawasan na naman ang mag-aaskaso sa mga bukid. So, number 4, government neglect and apathy to agriculture, industry, and commerce. Dito naman sa number 4, dito talaga as in pinabayaan na ng gobyerno yung mga nasasakupan niya. For example, nabagyuhan kayo, nasira yung mga pananim nyo, wala nang pakialam yung gobyerno doon. Hindi na kayo tutulungan kasi nga talaga pinabayaan na kayo. Ang tanging tinulungan nila nila dito yung parang binigyan nila ng permit ay ang pangangalakal. Pinayagan ng mga kalakal na nagresulta sa paghihiwalay ng kolonya mula sa dating kasosyo sa kalakalan sa Timog Silangang Asya, or ito yung sa ating Southeast Asia. Yun lang yung pinayagan nila. Parang yun na yung priority yung gobyerno natin kaysa sa mga magsasaka na pinabayaan na lang nila. Bali, only galayon lang. Galayon kasi yung may parang ship na kailangan sa pangangalakal. So, number 5, absence of material and moral incentive to work hard. So, dito naman, yung mga Pilipino, ay nawalan na ng interes na magtrabaho ng husto. Kasi nga, pag nagtrabaho daw sila ng husto, magkakaroon lang daw ng gulo. Magdudulot lang ito ng gulo. Hindi lang yon. Naisip nila na kahit magtrabaho naman sila ng husto, hindi naman sila makikinabang sa pinagtrabahuan nila. Kasi nga, iba lang ang kukuha. Kaya nawalan na sila dito nawala na sila ng interes na magtrabaho. Or sabi nila, magtrabaho sila. Pero hindi na talaga yung work hard na pinaghihirapan nila. Kasi hindi sila makikinabang. So, number 6, the teaching of Spanish missionaries. So, dito sa number 6, sinabi kasi dito ng mga Spanish missionaries that heaven is for the poor. So, yun nga, dahil nga sinabi dito na the heaven is for the poor, itong mga Filipinos naman, hindi na sila nagtrabaho ng husto para nga daw, alam mo na, para mapadali yung buhay nila or mapadali sila mamatay. Kasi sinabi ng mga Spanish missionaries at tinuro sa kanila na once daw na mahirap ka, mapupunta ka sa heaven. Kasi nga, diba, na yung heaven ay para sa mga poor or mahihirap. Kaya, ginusto na lang ng mga Pilipino na hindi magsumikap or magtrabaho ng husto para mapadali sila makapasok sa heaven. So, next tayo, number 7, too much government restriction and red tape in the approval of permit transact business. Dito naman, dahil nga sa sobrang higpit ng gobyerno na bago ka makapagpatayo ng negosyo, kailangan mo talaga makakuha ng permit, di ba? Kasi hindi ka naman talaga makapagpatayo ng negosyo pag wala kang permit. So, dahil dito, maraming negosyo ang hindi tumuloy. So, hindi na sila nagtuloy na mag-business kasi nga hindi talaga sila napakahirap talaga makakuha ng permit. So, dito naman sa number 8, encouragement and propagation of gambling. So, dito naman, mismong gobyerno na ang naghihikayat sa mga nasa kumpanya or sa mga tao na magsugal sa pagsusugal. Kasi nga, diba, dito sa pagsusugal, di ka na mahihirapan. Ayaw na nila yung mahirap na trabaho. At hindi lang yung pinangako kasi ng gobyerno na pagsusugal daw ay easy money. So, number 9, ownership of big estate by the fires. Since the religious corporation, divide kasi itong mga fires sa religious corporation. So, itong mga to, dahil nga meron na silang, di ba, malaki na yung gaya nila, ari-arian nila dito, malaki na yung ari-arian nila. So, dahil doon, kahit anong gawin daw ng mga kababayan natin, or mga kababayan natin sa lugar nila, talagang hindi to umaasenso or umaahon. Dahil nga, hawak na ito ng mga fire. So, wala na silang magawa kung hindi na nila mapaunlad yung bayan nila dahil nga kinokontrol na ito ng mga religious corporations. So, dito tayo sa example set by the Spanish in disdaining manual labor. So, dito naman, yung mga Spanish, para ayaw na nila yung mano-manong gawain. Bakit nga ba? Kasi nga, yun nga, nagkakaliga sila sa mga Pilipinos. Sa mga Pilipinos naman, gusto talaga nilang galing or patunayan sa mga itong mga Spanish na magaling sila sa mano-mano. Dahil nga, sa pangit na ugali ng mga Spanish. Kasi ang papangit talaga ng mga ma-attitude sila, pangit talaga ng mga attitude ng mga Filipinos. So, yun nga isang dahilan. Nang dahil doon, humantong ito sa away at puot dahil doon yun nga, nag-away sila kasi hindi na magkaintindihan, di ba? Bale, yung Spanish sa Filipinos, meron silang nag-away na sila at may away at puot ng dahil lang sa mano-manong gawain sa manual labor. So, number 11, deprivation of human dignity. Meron tayo dito, ito sinabi niya dito. The education of the Filipino from birth to death was brutalizing, depressing, and anti-human for 5 or 10 years. So, biruin nyo, di ba? Simula pagka-nganak natin hanggang sa pagkamatay natin, maranasan natin yung brutalizing, depressing, and anti-human. Biruin nyo in 5 or 10 years, di ba? Pwedeng maranasan ng in 5 years lang, pwede mo rin maranasan in 10 years na napakahaba na talaga nun. Tapos, the youth comes in the contract with book. So, ito nga, yung may isang bata na pumunta na may hawak na kontrata with isang libro dun sa pare. Tapos, itong pare, lakas loob na sinabi dito sa bata na kasalanan daw or evil sa mga Filipinos na makilala daw si Castilian. So, kasi nga daw, ang mga Filipino daw ay hindi daw dapat maseseparate sa Carabao. Ang Filipinos daw ay laging kadikit ang mga Kalabaw or Carabao. So, dapat tapos sabi niya na mga Pilipino daw ay dapat daw walang future or dapat walang future at ambition sa buhay. So, ganun ang tingin nila sa mga Pilipinos na napakasakit. Dahil doon, Spanish educational system therefore failed in promoting economic enterprise and activity. Kaya, nag-fail sila kasi nga hindi maganda yung nalalabasan ng kanilang ginawa. So, yun lamang po. Maraming salamat. Thank you po.
Good day everyone, my name is Rachel Pantino at ang i-discuss ko ay indolence of the Filipino. So bago yon, alamin na muna natin kung ano yung indolence. According to Merriam-Webster, indolence is avoidance of activity or exertion. Laziness, synonym laziness, idleness, slothfulness, sloth, o sa Pilipino ay katamaran. So, according to Rizal, the meaning of the indolence is lack of activity. So, factor attributable to the Filipinos themselves. Una, feeling of inferiority. Feeling of inferiority, Filipino paralyze all tendency toward advancement and develop in them the idea of giving up without fighting or exerting effort. So, nung sinakop tayo ng Kastila, mababa yung kanilang tingin sa atin. Ang tawag nga sa atin noon ay Indio. Before, hindi nagkaroon ng pantay na pagtingin, hindi naka-receive ng same opportunities, halimbawa sa education, hindi lahat nabigyan ng tsansang makapag-aral. Pagdating sa advancement, lamang sila, halimbawa 'di ba sa armas, hindi kaya pa ng Pilipino na lumaban. Andun yung idea na mag-give up na lang, ilang taon din tayong naging sunod-sunuran sa pamamahala ng Kastila noon bago natutong mag-aklas. So, ito din yung dahilan kung bakit nagkaroon ng feeling of inferiority ang mga Pilipino. So, the second one is placing hopes on miracle. Nurture with the stories of anchorites who lead a contemplative and lazy life The Filipinos spent their giving money to the church in the hope of miracle and wonderful things. So, malaki yung impluensya ng Kastila pagdating sa religion, Katolisismo. So, na-impluensyahan tayo pagdating sa paniniwala. Ang mga Pilipino, ginagasta yung kanilang pera sa pagbabakasakali na may milagrong mangyari o may mamagandang mangyari sa buhay nila. The next one is the lack of spirit to pursue lofty purposes, as their minds had been conditioned that they belong to the inferior race. So, dahil nga mababang tingin sa atin ng mga Kastila, may discrimination na nangyayari pagdating sa race. Filipino follow the rules na hanggang doon lang sila, na hindi nila dapat galingan pa o maghangad na mas mataas pa, na wala yung kanilang paniniwala na maaabot nila yung kanilang hangarin. So number 4 is lack of national sentiments. Scarcity of any opposition to the measures that are prejudicial to the people and adds bands of initiative that will redound to their welfare. The Rizal man in the Philippines is only individual, he is not a member of nations. So, the absence of any concerns for the nations. Wala ding unity, there's no sense of nations. There can be no collective striving to develop the country. Ito naman, yung essay ni Rizal, babasahin ko siya. Without education and liberty, the soil and the son of mankind, no reform is possible, no measure can give the desired result. Since someday or other, he will become enlightened, whether the government like it or not, let his enlightenment be as a gift given to him and not as spoil as war. We wish the policy to be sincere and consistent, or highly civilizing, without petty reservations, without distrust, without fear. So, nor misgiving, wishing the good for the sake of good civilizations, without ulterior, so thought of gratitude or ingratitude, or if not, a policy of courageous, often exploitation, tyrannical and selfish, without hypocrisy or deceptions, without a well thought out and a studied system for dominations and compelling obedience, for ruling to get rich and getting rich to enjoy. If the government adopt the purse, it can assure that someday or other it will reap the fruit, and final people will be with it heart and in interest. So there is nothing like a favor to win a friendship or enmity, or it's either hurled into his face or bestowed in him in spite of himself. If the government decide in favor of a systematic and regulated exploitation, stifling the desire for the independence of the colonies with the jingles of gold and the shins of opulence, paying with the material interest, wealth, the lack of freedom, let government attend more to material interests rather than to the interests of the poor friar corporations. Let it send out intelligent employees to develop industry, just judge, so all will pay, so that they will not pilfer and lay aside all religious pretexts. This policy has the advantage in the wealth may not completely to sleep the instinct of liberty, yet the day the mother country lost her colonies, she will at least keep the gold and must not regret having reared ungrateful children. So, kinukonclude niya sa kanyang essay, kailangan na magkaroon ng good educations at liberty to achieve progress in the Philippines at ma-solve yung or para ma-resolbahan yung problema ng indolence. So, the next one is Pilipinas dethrone the 100 Años. Pilipinas dethrone the 100 Años, or the Philippine a century hence, published in La Solidaridad, Rizal Predicat at Political Prognostications or Predictions. This essay starts with an analysis of causes of the miseries of the people. So, Rizal attempt to predict kung ano yung magiging kalagayan ng bansa sa loob ng 100 taon. He tried to answer the questions, mananatili bang tapat ang Pilipinas? O matitigil ang ugnayan nito sa Pilipinas? So, according to Rizal, para malaman ang hinaharap, kailangan buksan ang pinto ng kahapon. Bago dumating ang Kastila, nakikipagkalakalan na ang mga Pilipino sa ibang bansa. So, nang dumating ang Kastila, tinalikuran ng mga Pilipino ang sariling tradisyon at kultura. So, ito yung first start, the cause of the miseries of the people. So, Spain implementations of her military policies. So, because such law in the Philippines, consequences of these policies, the country was depopulated. Poverty became widespread. Families and farmland was neglected. So, every aspect of the Filipinos was retarded. So, yun lang ang aking report. Thank you for listening and God bless.
My name is Crystal Kate Potter and from Edu 3C from major in values education. So, ang i-discuss ko is yung kaduktong ng i-discuss ni Binibining Pantino na Filipinas dentro de 100 años. Na i-discuss niya na yung first cause of misery ng mga Filipino under the Spanish colonizers. A second cause of this misery was the deterioration and disappearance of Filipino alternative to indigenous culture. Using sword and cruz, sword sa Tagalog is yung tabok, minasak ng mga Spanish colonizers yung katutubong pamamaraan ng pamumuhay ng mga tao. That's why nag-result ito ng pagkawala ng tiwala sa sarili, pagkawala ng tiwala sa tao, pagkawala ng pananampalataya sa kasalukuyan, pagkawala ng pag-asa sa hinaharap. Okay, next. A third cause of this miserable condition of the people was their passivity and submissiveness to the Spanish colonizers. Dahil nga nawala na sa kanila yung pamamaraan ng pamumuhay nila, naging sunod-sunuran sila sa Spanish colonizers. Kumbaga, tinalikuran nila ang kanilang sariling kapalaran. Dahil nga rin, ang mga praile ay naging mabisa ang pagbuo ng kulturang katahimikan ng mga tao. What then had made the people realize their sad plight under the Spanish tutelage? Ano nga bang na-realize sa mga tao nung nalaman nila na ganun pala yung kalagayan nila? Okay. Bilang resulta ng diskriminasyon sa lahi, napagtanto ng mga Pilipino na sila ay isang natatanging tao. Sa kauna-unang pagkakataon, hindi nila napagtanto ang mga patakarang kolonyal at ang kanilang naging resulta, kondisyon ay hindi napahintulutan. Kumbaga, yung hinanain nila, hindi ito inaccept, kumbaga hindi ito napahintulutan ng mga Spanish colonizers. Dahil dito, naipon nila ang mga hinanaing laban sa mga pinuno ng kolonyan. Na nagtapos ito sa pagsisiklab at hindi matagumpay na mga pag-aasa. Okay. One question raised by Rizal in this essay. Could Spain prevent the progress of the Philippines? Should Spain decide to do so? What could she possibly do? Keep the people ignorant? Keep the people in poverty? Or exterminate the Filipino race? Phrase 1. Keeping the people ignorant had failed. Bakit kaya nag-fail? Dahil napatunayan nila sa pamamagitan ng pag-iisa, kumbaga, pinag-isa nila ang mga Pilipino. Ginising nila ang pambansang kamalayan ng mga tao. Next, sa kabila ng panunupil nila sa paaralan upang mapintasan nila ang mga mag-aaral, lumitaw. Lumitaw ang mga manunulat, artista, at malayang nag-iisip. With the spread of enlightenment, the Ilustrado class arose. Okay, next. Keeping the people in poverty had failed. Bakit din nag-fail? Napanatilihin, mahirap lang ang Pilipino. Dahil nga, ang mga Pilipino ay mapamaraan. Okay. Keeping the people in poverty created in the Filipino to change things in what we desire. Kasi tayong mga Pilipino, hindi naman tayo nakukontento na ganun lang yung buhay natin, di ba? Kumbaga, gagawa tayo ng paraan upang umunlad, upang kumbaga, tumaas tayo ng onte sa pamumuhay natin. Hindi tayo nakukontento na mahirap lang tayo. Kasi ang paggamit din sa kahirapan ay walang kabuluhan. Next. Extermination of the people as an alternative to hindering progress was an impossibility. Malabo naman talagang puksain ang lahing Pilipino. Napakadami nun. According to Rizal, ang mga tao nga ay nakaligtas sa kabila ng mga giyera at nasangkutan or naharap, kumbaga ganon, mga epidemya, mga pagsubok, nakaligtas nga. Yun pa kayang pupuksain nila. Okay, sa katunayan, sila ay dumadami ng 3 beses sa harap ng mga giyera at epidemya na ito. Bukod nga dito ay upang lipunin ang lahing Pilipino ay kinakailangan ng pagsasakripisyo ng isang malaking bilang ng tauhan ng Espanya. At tiyak, hindi papayag ang Espanya na mangyari ito. Ang pagpuksa ng mga Pilipino ay maaari ring magdulot ng panganib sa kanyang iba pang mga lalawigan. Pati rin ang kanyang kalayaan sa kontinente ng Europa. Can the divide at impera or divide and rule policy still work to foster enmity between and among the natives? To Rizal, this would no longer be effective. Bakit kaya hindi epektibo? Ayon kay Rizal, hindi na ito magiging epektibo sanhi na kadahilanan ng paggalaw sa kapuluan na dala ng pinabuting paraan ng transportasyon. Kasi sa paglalakbay natin, maaaring tayo ay makasalumuhan ng mga tao na magpapalitan tayo ng mga ideya. Tama? Kasi 'di ba, kapag tayo ay nagta-travel, nakikipag-usap tayo kung kanino-kanino and nagpapalitan tayo ng mga ideya at natututo tayo. So, this in effect can lead them to realize their common plight which can foster in them greater unity as people. Pagkakaisa bilang isang tao. Okay, Spain has no way of blocking reforms and progress people sought for. Ano kayang ibig sabihin nito? Ano ang pinapahiwatig nito? Okay. Kinakailangan na baguhin ng Espanya ang kanyang patakarang kolonyal sa Pilipinas. Ayon kay Rizal, ang patakaran ay kailangan katugma sa mga pangangailangan ng mga tao. Kasi kung magbabago ka, hindi naman tugma sa pangangailangan ng Pilipino, may pagbabago ba? Di ba? Wala. At nag-uugnay sa tulin na tumataas ng nasyonalismo ng mga tao. Kung hindi dapat baguhin ng Espanya yung kanyang patakarang kolonyal, mapipilitan ang mga tao na pangyayari na humingi ng kalayaan sibil at pambansang pagkakakilanlan sa hiwalay sa bansang ina rather. Okay, the third article of Rizal's essay centered on the reforms and political changes needed for the Philippines remain under the Spanish. Okay, sa pangatlong article, kumbaga, nakasentro lang dito ang mga reforma and sa changes ng mga political. Gayun pa man, binigyang diin ni Jose Rizal na ang mga reforma ay dapat pasimulan ng gobyerno upang magkaroon ng mapayapang bansa. Okay. The last article of this essay delved on the stages that would lead the Philippines into independence, tulad ng binigyan din ni Rizal sa sanaysay na hindi maiwasan ang kalayaan kung hindi nilalagay ng Espanya ang Pilipinas bilang isa sa mga lalawigan nito. Dahil hindi handa ang mga Pilipino sa paglaya sa kalayaan, hinulaan ni Rizal ang Espanya ay tatanggalan o papalitan ng ibang kapangyarihan. Next. Which colonizing power will replace Spain? Will it be a European power or an Asian power? Let's see. Okay. To Rizal, European powers will definitely not be interested. Okay, hindi interested yung European powers na mag-take, kumbaga, ng mga laga sa Pilipinas. Taking over the Philippines. England was already controlling India, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Shanghai. Germany, on her part, was avoiding any foreign entanglement as scattering her forces in a distant country would endanger her existence in Europe. France was already firmly entrenched in Indochina, while Holland was dominant in Indonesia. Moreover, these European powers were too preoccupied with their competition in dividing Africa among themselves. So, hindi payag yung European powers na sila yung mamuno dahil nga marami silang problems, ganon. Asian powers would not be interested in gaining control of the Philippines. Pati yung Asian powers, hindi pumayag. Kumbaga, hindi interesado na magkontrol sa Pilipinas. China, according to Rizal, was immersed in expelling Europeans, occupying various parts of the country. Japan, another potential conqueror, was being harassed by Russia and England. In short, hindi pumayag. Kumbaga, hindi sila interesado sa pag-control ng Philippines. So, which country will be interested if yung Spain has to give up? According to Rizal, no other than United States of America. Okay, na tinawag niyang the Great American Republic. Okay, isinaalang-alang ang kanyang interes na sa Pacific lamang at walang kamay sa pag-aagawan para sa Africa. Okay, United States ang pumayag na mag-control sa Pilipinas. Okay. Okay, nangyari nga. What Rizal envisioned in this essay came true. Kailan nangyari yung sulat ni Rizal? Okay, on May 1, 1898 rather, the Americans entered the Philippines and wrested from Spain the control on the Philippines. Okay, May 1, pumunta ang mga Americans sa Pilipinas upang kalabanin ang Spain para sa pagkokontrol ng Philippines. So, yung envision ni Rizal ay nangyari na nga na ang Amerika ang magsasalo sa ng Spain. Okay. 50 years after Rizal's death, the independence of the country was recognized on July 4, 1946. This was the fulfillment of what predicted in his essay. July 4, ito yung Independence Day natin. Okay, he was visionary and very prophetic when he said that history does not record in its annals any lasting domination by one people over another of different races, of diverse usages and custom, of opposite and divergent ideas. One of the two had to yield and succumb. Okay, that's all, guys. Thank you.
Rizal. So, marami nang pinagdaanan sa Rizal, marami na siyang napuntahan. So, dito tatalakayin natin yung mga artwork o yung mga naambag niya or kung ano yung mga ginawa niya dito in Brussels. So, let's start. So, from the Portugal, Spain, France, Belgium, and Germany, ito siya na Brussels. So, that's the place, the main place or the most beautiful place in Brussels. So, makikita niyo dyan. Ayan. Lincoln Way. So, ito na si Nagpulas niya. Where you live in Paris? Because the cost of living here, sabi ni Rizal, because the cost of living here daw is mahal. And ayaw niya daw yung gay social life in Paris. And niya-hampering daw yung mga literary work ni Rizal. So, sagot naman ng kasi niyang kababayan, sure, isn't it because you're running away from a girl in London? Tinanong siya nung isa niyang kamember sa Rizal. Of course not. The prices are just really high, sabi naman daw ni Rizal. So, sabi daw, okay din. So, well, then you can stay in my place without paying any rent. Sabi ni, thank you, but no thanks, my friend, sabi niya daw. So, in Brussels, nakalala niya si Jose Albert. Siya yung nag-accompany kay Rizal para move sa Brussels. Si Jose Alejandro, isa siyang engineer student and nag-ano siya sa surgery. So, sa kaka-surgery niya, parang naubos na doon yung time niya. Wala na siyang time sa sarili niya. And for the other additional information, si Jose Albert, ginigain or parang minimaintain niya yung gymnast body niya or posture. So, si Rizal, nagstay siya sa boarding house at 38 Row Philippine Champion. So, ayun yung makikita nyo. Ang ganda. So, in this house, dyan yung sinulat yung El Filibusterismo within 1890 to 1891. So, ang nagpapatakbo ng boarding house ito is the Jacobi sisters, which is Suzanne and Marie. So, next. So, si Rizal in Brussels, misspent yung sarili niya sa paggawa ng novel niya. Second novel, El Filibusterismo. And he also wrote different articles from La Solidaridad for his family and for his friend. He also spent his remaining time doing gymnastics in the gymnasium. Mostly, ang ginagawa niya dun is fencing at the armory. So, yung nakikita natin, di ba, isa sa mga skills ni Rizal is fencing. So, ito yung mga na-publish ni Rizal na article sa La Sociedad. So, he wrote that article because para sa pamilya niya at sa mga kaibigan niya. So, ito yung mga sunod na. A la defensa, to la defensa. Sinulat niya to within April 30 and April 30, 1889. So, ayan. Yung La Defensa na article niya, sinulat niya to para replyan si Patricio de la Escurura sa pagiging anti-Filipino niya. Kasi kung ano na yung mga pinagsasabi ni Patricio de la Escurura about sa Filipino. Then, the second one is the Verdad para Todas. So, sinulat niya to ng May 31, 1889. Sinulat niya to para sa pang-defense niya sa mga Spanish. Dahil sa mga pag-accusation ng Spaniards about sa ang mga native local officials ng Pilipinas na ignorant daw to at immoral. So, ginawa niya article na yun para depensahan yung mga sinabi ng Spaniards. Then, the third one is the Vicente Barrantes Teatro Tagalog. So, in this article, binunyag na dito yung pagiging ignorant ni Vicente Barrantes about sa teatro. Kasi, parang sinasabi ni Vicente na alam niya yung mga about sa theoretical art ng Tagalog, but which is hindi naman. So, dun in-expose ni Rizal yung totoo. And then the fourth one is the Una Profancia, a profanation. Sinulat niya to or pinpublish ito noong July 31, 1899. Sinulat niya to kasi pang-attack niya sa mga friars na nagdi-deny ng Christian burial ni Mariano Herbosa, which is his brother-in-law nga, na kung saan ay namatay nga sa kolera. So, sino bang matutuwa kung yung kapatid mo namatay, pero dinay yung Christian burial niya. So, the fifth one is the Verdades Nuevas, or the New Truths. Na-publish to noong July 31, 1889. So, nung papansin nyo, more on puro 1889. 1 year niya lang, pero ang dami niya nang sinulat. So, itong article na to, sinulat niya to para magkaroon ng to answer the letter of the published article of Vicente de Los Sanchez in La Patria. In La Patria, para siyang organization which is naggagawa sila ng mga article o mga bagay, mga info about sa life nila and about sa mga na-contribute nila at sa mga narating nila sa buhay. So, sa number 6 naman, which is the cruelty. So, in this article, it penned by Rizal on August 15, 1899. So, dito sa article na to, sinulat niya para i-defend si Blumentritt, which is his friend. Dinepend niya to from the defamatory and insulting attack of the latter's enemies. So, grabe si Rizal. Napaka-mabuti niyang kaibigan. Pinaglalaban niya talaga yung kaibigan niya. So, the 7 ones, the differentials or the difference. It's written on September 14, 1889 as a reply on the attacks of the article entitled Old Truth. So, ito, itong Old Truth article, na-publish ulit ito sa La Patria. So, sinulat ni Jose Rizal tong differences para ipakita yung mali about dun sa sinulat na article na pinablish sa La Patria, and to clamoring the reforms from the Spanish government. So, in the number 8, inconsequentias or the inconsequences, this was the Rizal defense for Antonius Luna against the attack of Pablo Mirdis, published in El Pueblo Soberano, a newspaper in Barcelona. So, ginawa niya itong article na to para i-defense yung atake ni Pablo Mirdis kay Antonio Luna. And this article was published on November 30, 1889. So, the 9 one is the Lelanto by Risas, Tears and Laughters in English. This article was the denunciation of the racial prejudice of the Spaniards against the Filipinos. It's published on November 30, 1889. So, the last one is the Ingratitude, na published on January 15, 1890. So, in this article, ito yung response to Rizal from the Governor General Wheeler to the people on Calamba that they should not be fooled by empty promises of the ungrateful son. This came out in the La Solidaridad on January 15, 1890. So, sinagot niya ito kay Gobernador Wheeler, ay kay General Wheeler, kasi sinabi ni General Wheeler na wag daw panghawakan yung pangako ni Rizal, or wag daw pangangawakan ng mga pangako ng mga anak na lalaki kapag umaalis daw. So, binigyan niya yun ng reply, yung article ni, yung sinabi ni Governor Miller. So, next. So, in New Tagalog Orthography, dito, meron siya, tawag doon, dito si Rizal nag-adapt siya ng mga Philippinized Tagalog in his translation sa tulong ni Schiller Sulumtel and the Address and Curator. So, ito isa sa mga sobre la nueva ortografía de lengua Tagala. It's a book na kung saan dito natutunan ni Rizal yung mga iba't ibang translations ng Tagalog. In the English, the new orthography of the language. So, si Rizal, nagkaroon siya ng credit to Dr. Trinidad H. Pardo de Taveras works in El Sancosa Ananguada, Tagala. Ito yung sinabi niya sa may, ito yung nangyari about dun sa record, or dun sa ginawa ni Rizal. I put this on the record so that when the history of this orthography is traced, which is already being enlightened Tagalist, that what is Caesar's be given to Caesar. This innovation is due solely to Dr. Pardo de Taveras' studies on Tagalismo. I was one of its most zealous propagandists. So, nakalala niya to si Dr. Pardo Tavera. Nakalala niya to, mas nag-improve yung knowledge ni Rizal about being Tagalog at kung ano yung mga iba't ibang translation ng Tagalog. So, sinadya na talaga ni Rizal na i-prescribe o i-reserve this new orthography in Tagalog, or in orthography in New Tagalog. And next. So, ito naman, dito tatakal natin, the Rizal criticized Madrid Filipinos for gambling. So, kasi, ang nangyari, nung punta siyang business, nalaman niya yung mga kababayan niya na Pilipinos ang Kalamba, was addicted in gambling. So, alam natin na ang gambling is nakaka-addict. And, si Rizal, nagsulat siya ng letter from Marcelo H. Del Pilar noong May 28, 1890. Sinabi niya doon na they went to Europe to work for their fatherland's freedom and not to gamble. So, sinabi nila sa letter na pumunta ang mga Pilipino sa Europe para para makuha yung freedom nila, hindi para ma-addict sa pagsusugal o sa gambling. So, ito yung letter na sulat niya. So, dito ipinapakita ni Rizal sa letter na ito yung matinding damdamin niya. Kasi nadidisappoint siya to his fellow manship na sinasayang nila yung time sa pag-gambling kaysa ipakita yung kakayahan ng mga Pilipino para magkaroon ng pagkakakilanlan yung Pilipino at hindi sila maliitin. So, in this letter pa lang, nami-disappoint pa talaga si Rizal. Kasi, yung gambling, ginagawang slavery yung mga Pilipino. Which is, dapat hindi talaga mangyari. And not his, not one of his objective na ganunin yung Pilipino. So, ano kayong next na nangyari? So, in true gambling, they are showing that Filipinos are not worthy of freedom but of slavery. So, sinabi ni Rizal sa letter niya na true gambling, pinapakita nyo na wala talagang saysay ang mga Pilipino sa nagiging malaya dahil nagiging alitin sila ng pagsusugal. So, in this letter, he wrote that they should spend their time doing something noble and generous because the youth is noble and generous. So, sinasabi dito na kaysa mag-aksaya ka ng panahon sa pagsusugal, why don't your time spent in something noble and generous para maging isang youth, noble and generous people. So, Sinabi niya rin sa laro na yun that the gambling Filipinos in Baguio is become very angry when they learn on results, moralizing that they call him Papa o instead of Pepe. So, yung mga Pilipino na nagagambling sa Madrid, mga taga Madrid, nagalit sila na nalaman nila na si Rizal ay tinatawag na Papa. Pero, not totally, minsan kasi, di ba sa language ng Euro, parang nagkakamali sila ng pronunciation. So, natatawag si Rizal na Papa po instead of Pepe. Next. In this matter, the presentiment of death Rizal, dito niya na yung nagkaroon siya ng bad dreams eh. Nagkaroon siya ng bad dreams because of the bad news from his own town in Calamba na ang tawag doon na yung rent doon o yung lugar na nila sa Calamba is tatanggalin niya daw or papalayasin na yung mga naninirahan doon sa Calamba. Because dahil dun sa bad news ngayon, actually na-depress si Rizal. Hindi niya alam kasi paano yung gagawin niya. Kasi alam niya, yung mga magulang ay doon nakatira. So, the main problem he received from his son is the annual payment for land rental was increased, resulting in the inability of many tenants of the Dominican hacienda, including his parents, to pay the unreasonable rents. So, it's resulted into the forcible eviction of the tenants from the land they were tilling. So, yun na nga, pinapalayas na sila. So, si Rizal, to aggravate the bad news from Calamba, kasama ng Supaciano with Antonio Lopez, the husband of Narcisa, and Silvestre Oblado, the husband of Olympia, were rusticated to Mindoro. So, napala sila. Then, came to the deportation of Manuel P. Higaldo, the husband of Saturnina, to Bohol for the second time. So, in this scenario, his brother-in-law nagkaroon ng deportation. So, parang nakulong. And this illegal deportation ang mas nagpalala ng depression ni Rizal. So, in this problem pa lang, makikita na natin na namang problema na si Rizal. Hindi niya na alam yung gagawin niya. So, in the next reporter, i-discuss niya doon kung nasolusyonan ba ni Rizal yung problema niya, lumala ba yung pagka-depress niya, o yun yung dahilan kung bakit nakabalik si Rizal sa Pilipinas. So, thank you for listening and God bless.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Emerald Corpus, and I'm here to discuss 4 topics for you. The first one is the premonition of Jose Rizal. Second one is the plan to return to the Philippines, a mimosa or to my news, and lastly, Rizal's affair with Susan Jacoby. So the first topic is the premonition of Rizal. Rizal evidently had a premonition of this death because the day after his 31st birthday, he wrote 2 letters, sealed and inscribed in each envelope, to be opened after my death, then gave it to Dr. Marquez for safekeeping. He revealed to Marcelo H. del Pilar in his letter from Brussels in June 1898. So, when Rizal had this premonition, he actually, in the middle of his despair, by the circumstances that is worried about his family in Calamba, wherein he became restless and sleepless at night. And then, even though there were times that Jose Rizal didn't believe about irrational or superstitious about dreams, he is still worried about that this may happen because he just really wanted to do is to finish his book about El Filibusterismo. So the one that he gave to Marcelo H. del Pilar in June 1898, because Rizal made two letters. The first one is addressed to his parents, siblings, and friends, and then the second one is addressed to all Filipinos. The next topic is the plan to return to the Philippines. So in 1885, Rizal decided to return to the Philippines, though his friends and supporters were urging him not to go as he would surely be arrested. Rizal had actually three or reasons why he would like to return or to go back to the Philippines. The first one is to operate his mother's eye due to her cataract, and she's having problem because it might lead to complete blindness. And the next one, he would like to serve the Filipino people had long been oppressed by Spanish tyrants. And lastly, to find out for himself how the Noli Me Tangere and his other writings were affecting Filipinos and Spaniards. Rizal didn't stop himself from going to the Philippines, even though his friends and other supporters advised him not to go because the Spanish already have an idea that is included to some revolutionary checking his writings and novels, which has hidden message about revolutionary against the Spanish people. Good news that Rizal was able to successfully remove the cataract of his mother. It just so happened that the Spanish friars objected to the ridiculous first novel of Jose Rizal, which is the Noli Me Tangere. It made them more agitated, and he would like him to be arrested. So they said that the work Noli Me Tangere has been found heretical, impious, and scandalous from the religious perspective, anti-patriotic, and subversive from the political point of view, injurious to the Spanish government and its proceedings in the islands. So they develop actually a fierce hatred to Rizal, and then because there's actually a message beyond his novel, and that's the time that he was arrested. Let's now move on to the Ami Musa, Tumay Muse. So, Tumay Muse was written by Rizal under his pen name, Laong Laan, on December 15, 1890. It was published in La Solidaridad, and it was written when Rizal felt worried about his family's condition in the Philippines. This further intensified Rizal's longing for them and caused him great pain not to be with them during their suffering. So, upon reading, uh, Rizal has reasons why he wrote this Ami Musa. So it is because of his disappointment over the half-hearted attitude of the Filipino expatriates working for the reforms in Spain. And then this poem expressed his bitterness over the troubles in Calamba. So he would really want to know what's really going on because there are Filipinos who were doubtful in helping him in winning back the Philippines from the Spain. Let's now have a look at the Rizal's affair with Suzanne Jacobi. So this Suzanne Jacobi was also she was also called the Petite, and she's the niece of the new landladies in Brussels of Rizal. So Rizal met Suzanne Jacobi, a Belgian lady, in January 1890 with his friend Jose Albert. In August 1890, Rizal left Belgium and gave the young Suzanne a box of chocolates. Suzanne Jacobi expressed her sadness and grief through a undated letter to Rizal in 1940 when Rizal left for Madrid. Rizal and Suzanne Jacobi just actually been together for 6 months because she and then just even attended a summertime festival in 1890, but then again it was just considered as a fling since it doesn't really last long. just like what happened to him and his relationship with Beckett. So let's now have a knowledge check. Me and my group mates prepared 15 questions for you to answer and for us to know or checking your understanding about our topic. So the first question is, what kind of organization conceived by Rizal? Second, who are the friends of Rizal who he acknowledged for their great help in his quest about history of the Philippines? Third one, where is the first conference held? Next is, give the two main reasons of Rizal's departure in Brussels. And then, why did Rizal write the article Ingratitudes and Leanto y Rizes? What bad news did Rizal receive from his home? What is the longest essay written by Rizal? How does Rizal deem to define indolence to the Filipinos? Spanish Filipinos were noted for their what? What was Rizal's premonition all about? And then, give at least 3 reasons why Rizal decided to return in the Philippines. How does Suzanne Jacobi express her sadness and grief when Rizal left for Madrid? Did Rizal admit the existence of indolence among the Filipinos based on sobre la indolencia de los Filipinos? When was the Filipinas Dentro de Clen Años published? And lastly, what is the importance for us students in studying Rizal's biography? And that's all. Thank you.